So I don't know that I have that much wisdom to offer, but my goal is certainly to try and add some value to people who are in the audience today. I was chit-chatting outside, and people told me that they don't know TEOCO. And I said, we are the best kept secret. Okay. And TEOCO is an acronym for the employee-owned company. So T for the, E for employee, so on. We are based in North America, in Fairfax, Virginia. And there is a few slides I put together to introduce TEOCO to the audience. But I feel that I would rather do that at the end. So I'm going to probably go to the value addition part first, and if time permits, do some introduction of TEOCO. So with that, I'll take off with something that Bernie's talked about, which is comfort zone. You talked about, a comfort zone. So I'll begin with a small conversation about comfort zone. How many of you make a continuous effort to go outside your comfort zone? Not do it when pushed, but make an effort to go out to your comfort zone on a regular basis, like you do something every month to consciously put yourself out of your comfort zone, just a show of hands. People who continuously put themselves out of the comfort zone, okay? So let's say that it's about a dozen people. Now I'll ask a different question. How many of you have a desire to grow continuously? So that's a lot more people. Now I'll ask you a simple question. How do you grow while continuing to do the same things that you have done before? Right? Growth means that you're doing something that you probably is not in your comfort zone, right? Because if it is in your comfort zone, then it doesn't mean that you're growing. Are you with me so far? So when you think about this problem in a slightly different way, it's not that I am so eager to go outside my comfort zone, but I actually want to grow. And when you convert going outside the comfort zone not as an activity that gives you discomfort, but as an activity that gives you growth, okay? When our children were growing, when we were small, right? You hear the word growing pains, right? Like their teeth, they're hurting, when there is a baby. So whenever you're trying to grow, there's some growing pains. And those actually are, points of pleasure. So I encourage you to think of going outside the comfort zone on a continuous basis as something that is critically necessary to try and grow continuously. Okay? And make an effort to do some one thing every month that takes you out of your comfort zone. And that doesn't have to be at the work front. It could simply be, changing, taking out the garbage. If you've never taken out the garbage at home, try taking out one day. Honest to God, you learn in the process. Okay? Because, when you take out the garbage, I'll tell you what you'll learn. That you need to replace that bag. And do you know where that bag is? And do you know how to replace it? Okay? So, anything you do, it looks simple, but it's not. This morning I tried to walk from my hotel to here. And you know what? It was not easy. Okay? But I said to myself, I had a suitcase that I was carrying with me, and I had a handbag. But I knew it was not a long walk. It was about half a mile walk. And it took me probably 20 minutes, but I got here. Okay? I decided that I was not going to jump into a cab and come here. I decided I was going to walk. And it was outside my comfort zone. I'm not familiar with the city. I don't know where BT Center is. But in the process, I feel I learned and I grew. Little things like that. Okay? So that's the point that I want to begin with, is that if you want to grow, you have to learn to go outside your comfort zone. And going outside the comfort zone is the only way of growing. I'll give you a small example. Okay? When I moved into my first home that I bought, that was 1995. That also happened to be the year I started TEOCO. The house we moved into had a bunch of windows, but no window coverings. So, there was probably between 16 and 20 windows. And when you move into a house with a wife and kids with no window coverings, it's just a little uncomfortable. So we decided that we were going to put a few window coverings. My brother happened to be visiting. So we went to the local Home Depot. We had measured our windows. We got the blinds cut to size. They sell them pretty cheap, and they cut them to size for you. And we came back home, and we had never put up a blind before. And we are not very handy people. At least I'm not. But in any case, there were the two of us. I was on the left side and he was on the right side. I was putting up the bracket on the left side. He was putting the bracket on the right side. And we put up a couple of blinds. And after that, I just said, let's change sides. And he says, nope, I'm an expert in doing the right side. You're an expert in doing the left side. Okay? So, from never having put up a blind, we became expert overnight. Okay? So, I'm actually going to go to my last few slides, and if time permits, I'll come back and introduce TEOCO a bit more. Okay. So I'm going to talk about creating breakthrough results, and I'll try to leave 10-15 minutes towards the end to give you a little bit of an introduction to TEOCO. So I want to talk about how do you go about creating breakthrough. Okay? So here is your current set of results, which is what you get today. Right? And breakthrough is what you don't have today, but you want. Okay? So in the case of BT, that could have been the maturity score on revenue assurance, which went from 2.3 to 4.0. I was watching your slides. Okay? But a breakthrough is not a different outcome. It's a dramatically different outcome. Something that you can't even foresee accomplishing, at least don't know how. Okay? So when I talk about breakthrough results, I'm not talking about incrementally better results. I'm not talking about 5% better. I'm talking about perhaps 5 times better. Okay? So this conversation that I'm talking to you about is not for how to produce incrementally better results. It's about how to create breakthrough results. Okay? So you have this result and you want a breakthrough. For example, okay, what might be a breakthrough? Most people that I know don't love their mother-in-laws. Okay? Okay? Loving your mother-in-law might be a breakthrough result. Right? Okay? And I bet you most of you don't know how to do it. Right? Those of you who don't love your mother-in-law, I bet you don't know how to love her. Okay? So the question is, we all know that we do a set of things to create an outcome. Right? And if you keep doing more of what you have done before, you will get more of what you have gotten before. We all agree with that? Okay? So to create a breakthrough result, we all agree that we have to take some new actions. And what I'm here to tell you is that doesn't work. Okay? So what you have done so far, right? You're now saying I want to love my mother-in-law and I want to have my mother-in-law love me. That's even a bigger breakthrough. Okay. So you're thinking of, what do I do differently? And the answer is that you cannot do anything differently to get her to love you. Until there is a body here. Okay? You look at your thinking from where your actions are coming from. All of our actions come from a certain way we think about the world. Okay? And you may not consciously recognize it, but we think about things in a certain way, and our actions are driven and controlled by our thinking. Okay? And if we want to create a breakthrough result, we have to create a new thinking. And until we create that new thinking, it's not possible to take the actions that are truly necessary to create breakthrough. Okay? This mother-in-law thing that I talked about is the first time I've talked about it. I don't know why it came into my mind. I've never talked about this mother-in-law thing ever before in my life. So whatever I'm going to say may not quite work. So just bear with me. I'm going out of my comfort zone. Okay, doing this mother-in-law thing. Okay. So we'll use that mother-in-law thing as an example of what is our current thinking. Okay. Anybody willing who doesn't necessarily have a phenomenal relationship with their mother-in-law willing to share their current thinking about their mother-in-law? It could even be daughter-in-law, but let's just stick with mother-in-law. Anybody bold enough to who doesn't necessarily have a great relationship, what their thinking is about their mother-in-law? Yeah.
She doesn't stop talking. And the level of detail that she goes into with her stories is like nothing you could imagine. She cuts
Okay.
a short story long.
Okay. So let's take that one. So she cannot stop talking. You guys have the same mother-in-laws? No. Okay. Okay. She cannot stop talking and she gets into an infinite level of detail, right? And what is your reaction to that?
Despair.
Annoyance, right? Getting over, wanting to get away, wanting to run away.
Lose the will to live.
Yeah, okay. And what is the thinking where that reaction is coming from? Perhaps don't want to listen to her stories, right? Perhaps want to have as little to do with her as possible, right? Not a pleasant experience, okay? Now, I'm pretty confident that you love your wife.
You are still on camera.
Okay?
Very much so, yes.
Okay? And whether you like it or not, she gave birth to your wife. And she loves her. I still think she loves her, right? Even you would agree? Okay. So you love her, and your mother-in-law also loves her and gave birth to her. Right? Maybe we can be a bit more respectful. I bet you that, okay, I bet you that your wife loves her mother, right? Okay, so you love somebody and they love somebody else. Doesn't it mean that you must learn to care for that person? If you want to love your wife and if you do want what is important to her, loving her mother is a part of your responsibility. Okay, so if you shift your thinking, not that I love her, but that my wife loves her, and therefore I need to be respectful of her and perhaps love her a little. And if you approach, create a new thinking in your mind that I am going to love my mother-in-law no matter what. Okay? I guarantee you your reaction to her stories will begin to change. When your thinking comes from the place, she's long-winded, she's telling all these stories, and all that stuff, it can be very, very annoying. But when you listen to the exact same story, saying she has a lonely life, she loves my wife, and she's doing it only just because she doesn't know how to show her love. This is how her personality is, and it's important to me to be respectful of my life, and therefore I need to be respectful of my mother-in-law, and so on. When you make a decision in your mind that I'm going to respect her and I'm going to love her, your actions that are necessary, okay, to create that positive relationship is bound to happen. Okay? But there is a prerequisite to all of this, which I failed to qualify, okay, which is to get a breakthrough result, you have got to want it. Breakthroughs don't happen by not wanting them. You agree with me? You cannot get to a breakthrough without wanting them. Okay? So to get to a breakthrough, you must want it. Okay? And therefore, that breakthrough may not be valid for you. If you don't want to, if you don't and you don't want to, it's okay with me. I got no skin in this game. Okay? So I am going to help you accomplish a breakthrough that you want to accomplish. Okay? And you're prepared to do whatever it takes. Okay? And this what I'm talking about here, okay, is very hard. Because breakthrough is very hard. If it was easy to do, you would have done it. You don't even know how to do it. It looks impossible. So breakthroughs are not easy. And you cannot accomplish them until such time you at least declare and mean it that they're important to you. When you declare and mean that they're important to you, and you say, I want to accomplish that, I'm willing to quote unquote do whatever it takes. Okay? And now I'm going to teach you a technique on how to do that, which is that when you want to accomplish a breakthrough, it's important to you, and you're not getting there. Right? You're not getting there. That's another part. You're not getting there. If it's your current outcome, it's not a breakthrough. Okay? Then you got to look at what is my thinking and how is that thinking getting in the way. Okay? So I'm going to go into a little bit of, elaborating a bit further of what this is about. Because I have a whole 3-4 hour course that I do on this material, but the time doesn't exist, so I will try to do that in as short a form as possible. See, what happens is something happens in our life, and we form what we call an assessment. Okay? And that assessment controls our thinking. Okay? And it drives our behavior. Okay? And assessments are not facts. You would agree? They're, like if I say this is a beautiful auditorium. Right? If I say this is beautiful, and it is beautiful. Okay? Am I saying something about this auditorium, or am I saying something about me? I say I'm saying something about me by saying I'm not used to being in such a beautiful auditorium. Okay, the auditorium being beautiful, there is no measure. The auditorium being big, there is no measure. Right? This is big auditorium. But what does that mean? That simply means I'm not used to being in such big rooms. It doesn't quite say anything about the room. So that's an assessment. If you say this auditorium seats 150 people, now that you can count the seats and verify that. So that could be an assertion. So this auditorium seats 150 people is an assertion that could be verified by counting the number of seats. But saying this auditorium is big, there is no way to verify that. It's an assessment. So we form assessments. Okay? And there's nothing you can do to stop forming assessments. Nothing. You're continuously, life is happening to you, and you're forming assessments. Like I'm speaking right now, you're saying this guy's bullshitting me, or whatever, or profound, whatever. There's an assessment that's happening. Somebody's driving, and you know that guy's going to cut in front of me. Must be a woman, or whatever. So there is an assessment we are continuously forming. Okay? And there's nothing we can do to form these assessments. Okay? The question isn't that we need to stop forming them. The question isn't that they're right or wrong. The question really is, are they working for you? Okay? So if you have an assessment about something, right, and you're getting a certain outcome, okay, and that outcome is desirable, I got no issues. Keep forming that assessment, keep living your life in exactly the same manner. But what if you're not getting the outcome you desire? Then what's the point of sticking to that assessment? Okay? Because the reason people do, because they feel, but that's the right answer. My assessment is correct. He's an asshole. Right? How many times do we have somebody that we are unable to get along with, we label them by the name of asshole, and then we can never work with them? Right? Okay? And if that assessment of labeling them asshole gets you to your desired outcome, I have no problems. Okay? But oftentimes, it doesn't get us to the desired outcome. Okay? Then hanging on to that assessment, they're an asshole, doesn't work for you. And if you need their support, you might as well come up with a different assessment and figure out how to get their support. Right? And it will typically begin when you want to get support of somebody that you don't have. Right? Putting this big label on them called asshole. Does it help you? Can you even talk to that person? Do you even want to talk to that person? Right? So, that assessment that that person is an asshole is not a good assessment for you. Not because he's not, but because it's not getting you to the outcome. Right? Okay? So then you say to yourself, okay, what could I be doing differently? Okay? That gets him to listen to what I have to say, or to support my idea, or to participate in my initiative, or at least look at what I'm trying to say. Right? And in none of this am I suggesting that that person is actually not an asshole. Okay? All I'm suggesting is your thinking he's an asshole is a problem. Okay? He may be one, but you have to put it aside. And you have to say, okay, maybe I have not communicated to him how critical this matter is, how important it is that that we have a dialogue about this. Okay? So when you change your attitude about that person, and you remove that label, that assertion, right? You change that into a new thinking. Okay? So what I'm saying is, whenever in life you find that you want to create a breakthrough, and you're stuck, and you really want it, okay, you've got to examine your thinking. What in my thinking could be blocking it? Okay, and you have to create a new thinking. And now is the tricky part. When you create that new thinking, you cannot ask the following question: is that new thinking right? Is it true? Those questions will stop you right in your tracks. How can I not label this person an asshole? I know they are. Okay? The question isn't that whether your new thinking is right. The question is, if your old thinking is not getting you to the answer, okay, can the new thinking be more effective? So don't think of things that you have in your head as right or wrong. If you start thinking them in the following word, do they work for me or do they not? And if they don't work for you, try something different, anything different. Okay? I have this interview question that I ask everybody. Okay? I have these 8 marbles. Okay? And one of them is heavier than the other 7, which are all equal. With me so far? Okay? And I tell them I have a balance, and you need to use the balance to determine how to find the heavy one. So most of them start by weighing 4 and 4. And then find the heavy one, then go 2 and 2, right? from the one that was heavier, and then another heavy one, then they go 1 and 1. So in 3 tries, they found the heavy one. Are you guys all with me so far? Okay. And then I tell them, can you do any better? And I bet you at least half the people, if not more than half the people, cannot move off of 4 and 4. They cannot figure out how to do anything different. They keep playing with 4 and 4 and then trying to say, their first move remains to be 4 and 4. I put 4 on each side. Okay? And until they move off that, there's no way for them to find a different answer. Okay? So I sometimes will give them a hint. How about you try 1 and 1? Right? And some of them will then come up with the answer that I'll change the other one, and 7 ways I'm done. Right? You do 1 and 1 and they're equal and you keep changing the other one. So then I tell them, if they're equal, could I not change both? With me so far? And then they're down to 4. Right? Okay? So at least it's not a better answer, but it's a different answer. Okay? So now I tell them, okay, either they figure it out or I guide them into doing 2 and 2. Right? What if you do 2 and 2? And if they're different, right, then you take the heavier one and you break it apart and you're done in 2. Right? And if they're the same, then you do the next 2 and 2. With me so far? And then one of them is heavier, and then you split them and you're done in 3. So half the time you're done in 2 and half the time you're done in 3. So all of a sudden we have improved. The 4, 4, 2, 2, 1, 1 method, we have improved it by starting with 2 and 2. Now, by the way, I'm not telling you the answer, and that's not the answer. So if you guys are smarter ones thinking that that's the answer, that's not the answer, I know it. Okay? I'm not telling you the answer. But what I'm telling you is how many people, the reason I told you this story, and also this is the first time I'm relating this story in this context, is because people get stuck. They just can't move off of 4 and 4. So whatever your thinking is, so many people get stuck in that thinking. Okay? Because they're thinking about what's right and what's wrong. Okay? If you start to look at your life through not the pair of right and wrong, but through the pair of eyes of what works and what doesn't work. Okay? And when you create new thinking, don't judge whether it's right. Okay? Just the key word here is, and this is a technical word in this training, take a stand. What does taking a stand mean? You believe it. You don't question it. It's like God exists. That's a stand. And you live up to that stand. When you live that stand, you will invariably give life to a different set of actions and a different set of outcomes. Okay? And all of this is terribly hard. Okay? Therefore, it's critical before you attempt it that you want the outcome. Okay? So if you want the outcome, I guarantee you that you will get it. And to test this, the best place to test this is in your home life. Okay? Because we can change our colleagues, we can change our work, but we can't change our family, at least our parents, our siblings, right? And if you don't have a good relationship with your family, with your parents, with your siblings, with your uncles and your aunts, you can't change them. You can give up on them, but you can't change them. Okay? So the reason this stuff works in the personal life is our commitment, okay, to making it work is much higher, because there is no way to change it. And once it works, you begin to believe this. Okay? And I guarantee you, if you have a relationship in your life that is not where it needs to be, okay, you're determined to make it better, that you can by using these techniques. Okay, look at a personal relationship where it's not where you want it to be. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm not trying you to pick one that's 7 and move it to 9. That's not a breakthrough. I want you to pick one that's below 5, like 2, 3, 4, okay, and try to see if you can get it to a 6, 7, or 8. Okay, where 10 is perfect, 1 is horrible. So I'm trying to get you to something that's below the halfway mark, something that's really important to you, you want to fix it. Like, for example, you're not on speaking terms with your father. Okay, one of these days he's going to be gone. And at that time, I guarantee you, you will regret it. Okay, let's just figure out how to make up before he's gone. Okay, by that time, it'll be too late. So if there's some relationship in your life that's not where it needs to be, that's below 5, that you want it to be higher, you try and examine how you approach it, what is your thinking, and how you can shift your thinking and take a different set of actions. I tell people that you can't change anybody. You can only change yourself. You all believe that, right? That you can't change anybody, you can only change yourself. That doesn't stop us from trying, by the way. We keep trying to change the others, only if you will stop doing that, right? Okay. But when I say you can't change anybody, I'm actually lying. Okay, in what way am I lying? When you start trying to change somebody, invariably they will change. Okay, when your focus becomes changing yourself, okay, asking you the question, what could I do differently? And you behave towards that person in a different manner, invariably their behavior towards you changes. When you stop trying to change them, they change. Okay? When you try to change them, they never will. When you try to change yourself in reaction to the fact that you are behaving towards them differently, okay, that they will invariably change. I'm going to make sure that I keep within my time box of 45 minutes. I will want to check on where I am. Oh, did I unlock? Okay. So I have a couple of quotes here that I want to take you through, and then I will come back to the introducing TEOCO. So this is a bit of a definition of breakthrough. It's an extraordinary result. Okay, it's something you really want. Okay, and it's very difficult to get. We've talked about all of that. There are a couple of quotes here, and then I'll go back to the beginning and introduce TEOCO. And somebody will have to help me move back, because I don't think this can move back. Okay. So what does it say? The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. An unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man, because the reasonable one changes himself, right, to adapt to the world. Unreasonable one says that the world has to change, okay, to adapt to him. Anybody know who said this? Donald Trump. I was wondering if we could finish this conversation without that name coming up.
I would say BPR is like that.
Huh?
We are very unreasonable.
Yeah. So this is not too far from here. So the person that said it is not a Brit, but almost a Brit. George Bernard Shaw. Is he an Irishman? Is he from Ireland? Or, huh? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. And there is another one, and then I'll come back to the beginning. Whatever you can do or dream that you can, begin it. Boldness is genius and power and magic in it. Okay? So the secret of success is to start. Whatever you want to succeed at, you have to begin. You begin, you have a chance. Okay? So can we please move it back to the very beginning? Yeah, okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate whoever did that. You know, I really am an accidental entrepreneur. I never intended to be in business. I always intended to be a teacher and a coach, and you can perhaps see a bit of that in me. Okay. I ended up starting this company just to prove a point that you don't have to be an asshole in order to succeed in business. Okay? And we define our core purpose at TEOCO as advancing the practice of principled entrepreneurship. Okay? We have a set of core values. They are in the back of all of our cards, any card that you get from anybody. I have a few of my colleagues here from TEOCO. Susan Brady, who heads marketing for us. Hannah, who works with Susan in marketing department. And John Rintoul, who leads North Europe sales for us. So they are here. So if you guys want to talk to somebody at TEOCO, I have 3 colleagues here. What does TEOCO do? And obviously, you know, my goal is not here to market TEOCO, but since there is some curiosity about who we are, and we are the best kept secret, I just thought I'll share a little. So it's about a 22-year-old company. I started it in 1995. It's based in Fairfax, Virginia. We basically have 300 customers all over the world. Our business is divided into 4 business units: business analytics, service assurance, RAN, and device. Business analytics is the portion of the business that's most relevant to this. I'll talk about the other 3 briefly and then go into business analytics in a little bit more detail. Service assurance is that portion of our business where we do fault management, performance management, and customer experience management, and fault analytics, performance analytics, and things like that. It came to us from an acquisition we made in Israel called TTI Telecom. So we compete with people that do fault and performance management and so on and so forth. We have very, very good solutions in this area. RAN solutions is a portion of our business. RAN stands for Radio Access Network. We do planning, optimization, configuration management, capacity management, and likes in the RAN solutions business. Device and IoT solutions is a business where we do testing. So if you want to certify a device to operate on the AT&T's network, so we are one of the 2 third-party labs that AT&T has certified. So if you don't have your own certified lab, you want to put a device on AT&T network, you have to go to one of the 2 third-party labs. We are one of those 2 third-party labs. And so we do the testing of those devices to certify them to be operating on AT&T's network. They can be handsets, they can be iPads, they can be modules that go into IoT devices and so on. Okay? So we have many, many OEMs as our customers. We get paid by OEMs to certify the devices to operate them on the AT&T's network. These are some examples of the customers. We started in North America. So our heritage is North American. Until about 6-7 years ago, about 98% of our revenue was in North America. And the other 2% was auditing BT invoices in UK. Okay? So all the invoices that BT was sending to companies like Cable and Wireless, to Virgin and so on, all of those were going through our systems. And we were auditing those invoices for accuracy. Okay? Until 6-7 years ago, about 98% of our business was in North America. Today, about still half of our business is in North America. That's why you guys probably don't hear of us. We say we don't do revenue assurance. And what do we mean by that? We in North America don't consider cost management to be a part of revenue assurance. So what you guys call cost assurance, we call it cost management. And in our world, cost management is not revenue assurance. I don't mean to say that it shouldn't be. I simply say that, so when we say we don't do revenue assurance, what we mean to say, we do revenue analytics, we do revenue leakage, but we don't have a workflow system like Subex does, like we does, and like some others do, that kind of takes you. What we do is we build analytics platforms. We are experts in cost management, in cost assurance. We are the leading experts in the world in cost management and cost assurance. That's what bread and butter to us is. Okay? That's where we started. Before we had anything, we had that. And that is the business in which we are a dominant player in North America. Almost 80% of the North American spend that is from carrier to carrier goes through our system. Okay? So all those invoices that carriers bill to each other for inter-carrier billing, whether they be in any format, CAPS, CCAPS, or EDI, or any other proprietary format, all of them, the physical invoices, whether that be electronic file or whatever, they come to us in our data center. We have a hosted solution. We load those invoices into our systems, and then they're used by our clients to audit, account code, dispute, reconcile. We have a system that does claim center, so we can file claims for you on your behalf. One of the reasons that the cost management has not taken off outside of North America, and we are not as strongly present in cost management, we have some customers outside of North America, is, does anybody know why cost management is such a big deal in North America and not outside? No. No. Neither one of those two. They all contribute, but they're not the dominant factor. I didn't hear. Sarbanes-Oxley, no. Huh? Okay, so I'll tell you the core reason it's not is in North America, if you dispute an invoice, you can short pay it. Let me see if you guys get that, right? If I dispute a portion of my bill, I'm allowed to short pay it. That makes that business dramatically more relevant in North America. Because if I have to pay the bill in full and dispute it, how long before somebody looks at my dispute? Right? Okay, till cows come home, right? But if I short pay it, how quickly will you look at my dispute to reject it or accept it? Right? So if you guys want to change the industry, okay, you have to change the short paying. If you create a short pay methodology that if I dispute an invoice, I can short pay the portion of it that I dispute. Okay? And what happens is, it is such a common part of life, nobody abuses it, simply because if you abuse it, I stop doing business with you. If you dispute my whole invoice and don't pay me, I disconnect. I say, don't need you, don't want you. So the short pay is why it works in the North America. Every invoice that we dispute, every dispute we file, we short pay, it gets looked at, it gets quickly accepted or rejected. And when we do some of the disputing on clients' behalf. We are experts in finding these mistakes. We do a certain amount of work on a contingency basis. So people pay us to use our technology, but we also are experts in auditing these bills. So people pay us on a contingency basis. We come in, we charge you nothing, you give us a percentage of the savings. Okay? If TEOCO files a dispute, it's taken seriously. You guys remember a commercial from the olden days when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen? Okay? When TEOCO files a dispute, it's taken seriously. We don't ever file a frivolous dispute. Okay? It goes through two criteria. One is that we have to approve it. We have to believe it's legitimate enough because we are putting our reputation on the line when we say we dispute this. But it also goes through a client approval process. So we first internally approve it, that it is to be filed. Then we have our client approve it. We only file a dispute when we have approved it and when our client has approved it. Okay? Because we feel every time we file a dispute, we don't win every one, but each one of our disputes has to match a standard of reasonableness. Okay? That nobody can call our disputes frivolous. Okay? We win about 70% of the disputes we file. Okay? When we file a dispute, people take it seriously. They know that we are not bullshitting. Okay? So in the business analytics business, we have a cost management solution, which we call cost assurance. We have a routing management solution where we do least cost routing, domestically and internationally. And we have a financial analytics solution where goes by the name Sonar, where we take all the XDRs, we put the cost at the lowest granular level, we put the revenue at the lowest granular level. And once we have done that, because we are experts in cost, so we know how to cost an XDR. And most people don't know that cost at that level to cost a XDR at that level of granularity. We stitch it together, we enrich it, we put that. Then you can do margin analysis, you can do device profitability, you can do plan profitability, you can do who's creating fraud for you. We identified the traffic pumping fraud. How many of you have heard the word traffic pumping? Nobody? So there is something called traffic pumping. We saved our customers hundreds of millions of dollars by finding traffic pumping fraud and by being expert witnesses in a court case around traffic pumping fraud. Okay? And Eric, if you someday want me to get somebody to write about it, I'll be happy to. Okay? Let me see here. Okay? So this is a bit more of the same. Okay? So these are some of the areas we are focusing on innovating. It happens to be some of the same areas that I saw on one of the BT slides, similar. Okay? We clearly recognize that the world is going to be far more virtualization, IoT, and 5G centric, and end-to-end VoLTE analysis and end-to-end VoLTE analysis is critical. We have launched a new solution called InSync that does a tremendous job in the area of helping you do root cause analysis as well as end-to-end VoLTE assurance and end-to-end VoLTE assurance. Now, if you ask me what that means, I'm probably not an expert to tell you that. Okay? So this is a little bit of how the company was built, and let me just do my time check. Okay. I started the company in 95. We were mostly in cost management, started that in 1998. Slowly over time, we went into financial analytics and least cost routing. With the acquisition of TTI Telecom, we became international and we went into the field of service assurance, fault and performance management. We acquired a company called Schema also in Israel, which was in RAN optimization. They had products called Forte and Mentor. Anybody has heard of these products, Forte or Mentor or RAN optimization? Probably not this crowd. Okay. Then we acquired a company called Aircom based in Leatherhead in UK. So that's when we became close to the Queen. So we have a couple of Queen's awards. Okay. Aircom, probably you guys have heard of the name Aircom? No? Yeah. Okay. So we acquired Aircom in December of 2013. And so this is, today we have about half of our revenue in North America and half of our revenue outside of North America. All the beautiful people here are from our Leatherhead offices. Okay. So this is a sort of a sample list of our customers. We have about 300 customers. So you have North America, CALA stands for Caribbean and Latin America, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and APAC. So as you can see, we have a fairly good market presence. We have offices in 15 different countries and probably employees in probably 30 plus countries. I'll skip these two slides, but okay. So with that, I'm happy to take a few questions. I think there were a couple of questions that came up on the polling. Yeah.
On the polling slide.
Okay.
So let me try and find them for you. So the first question was, what is your relationship like with your mother-in-law?
Okay. To be candid, I think it's a very positive relationship. I adore her and love her. I love my mother, and I probably love my mother-in-law just as much.